have a good piece of political art behind me. I'll show you after the meeting, David.
Okay, Council, I think we're all here. Staff, are we ready to proceed, Corporate Officer?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to welcome everybody to this meeting of the regular meeting of Council for October the 20th, and acknowledge that we're meeting this evening on the traditional territory of the Squamish Nation. I also want to acknowledge, as a community and as a province and a country, we're still working under the state of emergency for COVID. And how important it is as we go into round 2 of COVID that we continue to take precautions, so we continue to social distance, to wash our hands, to wear our masks, and to encourage others. Here at the town office, wearing a mask is the normal course of business now. We all wear them. We all have them when we're passing people in the hall, when we're going into spaces. We're all wearing masks, as we are in Super Value and supermarkets and various stores in the town. And it's not something, it's something now we've more or less taken for granted and become quite fashionable too, I must say. So I just acknowledge that. I sympathize with those of you who have find that to be a difficulty. But I appreciate that when I meet somebody and they're wearing a mask, whether it's at the recycling depot or the grocery store, or occasionally the liquor store, that we're all looking after each other as a community, and that's important. So thank you for all doing your part. And I am alone. I'm going to take it off. So we have an agenda this evening, and I'd like to ask for a motion that the agenda be adopted as presented. And Councillor Crowell, thank you. Councillor Lumley, thank you. All in favor of adoption of the agenda? Thank you. And I acknowledge also that the Youth Councillor Gravity is with us tonight. Nice to see you. First item of business is the adoption of the minutes, regular minutes of council on October 6, 2020. Recommendation to be adopted. Councillor Crowell, thank you. Councillor Ladwig, thank you. All in favor of adoption? Thank you very much. Any business arising from those minutes? There was one unfinished kind of item last week, and that had to do with the Sunshine Coast Bear Alliance. And those who are interested will see a notice of motion at the end of this agenda that will pick up on that and follow up on that. So wait for it, it's coming. And so the first item of business under we have under delegations, we have Paul Kamen, the Visitor Information Center. And Paul, are you with us? And Council, there was a handout that we received for the Visitor Information Center. And if you have a copy of that. Mr. Kamen, welcome. You look like you're in a nice place.
Hi, thank you. Good evening. Just to note, I do also Wendy Wright, the Visitor Center Manager, is also with us, and she will be giving a bit of a presentation about the Visitor Center. I'm here to speak in general about tourism, and I did provide a copy of the most recent strategic business plan that we had just completed. And I'd like to make an important note about that the dates, timelines on that are need to be corrected to 2021 through 2026.
Okay, thank you.
Representing the next 5 years. So that's an important document that is part of the MRDT renewal process. This document is going to be going out to the accommodators to preview and review and make a decision on whether they want to support the continuation of the 2% MRDT municipal regional district tax. And I thought I'd share that document with Mayor and Councils, as it is probably the most comprehensive piece of information I can provide to you at this time about the state of tourism, particularly in light of the COVID pandemic. Yeah. I'm also here to announce we did qualify for some pilot project through Tourism Industry Association of Canada. So we are going to be doing 2 destination development workshops on November 19th and the 20th to develop culinary tourism as well as shoulder seasons, winter season tourism, which aligns with our mandate to create a year-round tourism destination for the Sunshine Coast. We are also holding our annual general meeting on November the 25th. It will be on Zoom, and I will send out an invite to all of you. And outside of that, I've been doing a lot of consultations, obviously, with BC Ferries over the last few weeks. And I am also about to start the MRDT renewal process and reaching out to all the accommodators. So just to give you a heads up on what I'm up to, and I'm happy to answer any questions after Wendy's presentation.
Thank you, Paul.
So I'd be happy to hand it off to Wendy and allow her to speak. Thank you.
Do that. Thank you. Welcome, Wendy.
Hi, everyone. So does everybody have a copy or have the ability to see the document that Paul shared?
Yes, I have a copy.
So I'll just since you can read everything, I won't read it to you, but I'll just kind of give you a overview of everything and you can ask any questions. So the front page is our beautiful new visitor center, which at the very beginning, I thank everybody because it was such a wonderful group effort. This is the first time I've ever done any kind of renovation of any sort. And it was a big learning curve for me. And so the support that I received, especially from Emmanuel Machado and everybody from the town of Gibsons, was awesome. The builder was great. It was a really good experience. And it looks really fabulous. It's unfortunate that we haven't been able to let anybody inside except for our staff and our Canada Summer Jobs people, but that's okay. Hopefully we'll get to that. So in here, I did a little, just a timeline, just so that if you were interested, I'll go into it right now. I'm not sure if you're all aware, we're going to help with grant proposal to get the outside of the visitor center, a nice big deck, and enhance that area. So COVID hit. We were still open at the old visitor center location. And then after the state of emergency, we closed that down on the 18th. For me, that kind of was timely because it allowed me to focus on getting the visitor center ready. So I worked with Sunshine Coast Tourism. We had a lot of email inquiries and phone inquiries about people who thought it was still okay to travel, and they were quite respectful, checking to see if Sunshine Coast was open to visitors. So Sunshine Coast Tourism had the whole Explore Later campaign, and I helped get that message out to people who were contacting us. Let's see here. There was a lot of work put in for not only the inside of the visitor center, but wayfinding signs, of which I'm still finding holes and things that we need to address. So it was a pretty big undertaking, and we got it all ready pretty much just in time for July 1st to when phase 3 of the restart program opened. And so we set up at the front. We had a sneeze guard and a table and a beautiful big tent so people would be sheltered from the sun. And we kind of MacGyvered our retail as the summer progressed. We learned how we could sell things still at the visitor center. We did not bad considering people could hardly see behind the screen. For our staff, we created a COVID-19 safety plan, which now seems very easy to implement. But at the time, because this is new to everybody, it was quite an undertaking to learn what we needed to do. I'm sure you probably went through the whole same situation with the town. So we had the tent, we put the sneeze guard up, and we had sheets informing everybody. It went out for every visitor. Sunshine Coast Tourism created a really nice safety awareness for visitors, and we made sure that we got the message out to make sure people were being respectful. And I have to say, so many of the visitors were for the most part, really just super respectful and came with their masks or were questioning, are things open? What, how do I act? So it was a really good experience considering the situation. We modified our hours. So at the outset, we thought it was going to take us quite some time to sanitize, and it did, set up, take down, sanitize. So we shortened our hours to 10 to 4 for the whole summer, and staff worked from 9:30 to 4:30. Going forward, however, we've got it pretty dialed in. And so I'm hoping by next summer that we'll be able to do 9 to 4:30 and give us a half an hour at the end of the day to sanitize. And obviously, I'm imagining we're going to have to keep this protocol up for quite some time. This winter, I made the choice to change our 2 closed days to Tuesday, Wednesday instead of Monday, Tuesday. There was a lot of businesses in the lower Gibsons that said, there's so many people asking for directions. Where's the visitor center? Where's this and that? And on a Monday seems to be the overflow day from the weekend. So we're going to experiment this this off season and see how it goes. I don't know if you're following along on the page, but on page 5, you can see that we have this beautiful new counter and a nice clear glass screen to protect us. So we're at the front doors right now, and over the next few weeks, I'm planning to, cordon off other parts of the visitor center and allow people into the front desk so they can be in the space. We haven't fully, I sort of stopped spending on the pretty things inside, like images on the walls and logos and that kind of thing, because it's going to be some time before somebody actually gets to see it. So it looks kind of bare, but with all our brochures and everything. And I think it's a really impressive space. So our staff, we had 2 Canada Summer Jobs students this summer, which were wonderful, wonderful people. One we brought back from last year, and one was a new hire, and they were both fabulous. By the time the 3rd week rolled around, I was comfortable enough to leave them together on a weekend. So that was really helpful. And I also, one person retired, and so I've hired a new person. So I've got 2 part-timers, one for Saturday, one for Sunday over the winter. We like to do familiarization tours, not just in Gibsons, but throughout the whole coast. So we did the 2 things that we normally do, which is I send them on Dale Peterson's history tour, and Matthew gives them a tour of the museum. So that's that both they loved it. They always love it, and so it's nice. They come back all excited about the cool stuff they've learned about Gibsons, and they get to share that with the visitors. Statistics. It was definitely a lower year, so we were down. It got better as the months progressed. So we were down 74% in July, but then only down 42% in September. So I think I'm curious to see what October's numbers present, because even though it's slowed down, it feels to me like there's more people coming at this time. I know Jamie Manny from Alpha Adventures expressed that he's purchasing, booties and dry suit materials, and he's got people booked into November doing kayaking tours. And so I think the trend is people are still wanting to get out, and the people in BC are not going to Mexico. And so the Sunshine Coast is a perfect option for them. This was the trend, by the way, for all the visitor centers, and some did even, some of the numbers were even more bleak. In Vancouver, the city of Vancouver, they really had a tough time. People were trying to get out of Vancouver. We no longer have our washroom available, but that's not necessarily a bad thing because our old washroom, as many of you know, was not really up to par. So the washrooms across, located at Weingarten Park are awesome because we can just point them right across the street. Some of them are a little chuffed that they have to walk back down those 66 stairs and then back up to see us if they want some more information. So I'd love to see if Sunshine Coast Tourism and the town could work together on some washroom signage. I notice as I walk around, like even there's no sign at Weingarten Park to say that they are the washrooms there. You just kind of have to find them by accident. And at the visitor center, even I made a big sign, but it's still not really, doesn't really stand out enough to say you're here, here's the washroom. So it would be good to work on that a little bit. Social media and the visitor center. So all visitor center numbers are down throughout the province and have been declining somewhat. Every time I have someone come in that's of a younger generation who's a social media savvy person, they are always so grateful that they're happy they made the decision to come into the visitor center. They can't believe how much information there is. And it's you always hear them walking over going, oh, that was so great. So I have a theory that if we promote on social media to the people who generally don't really even think about coming to a visitor center, what we have to offer, and then we can maybe create a whole new generation of people that actually think about the visitor center first as they're coming in. I think it really enhances people's trips. Our rating still is 4+ stars, which is wonderful. I'll read to you this little email we received from Matt about Matt, our summer student. Thank you for your help, Matt. We use the list. We have a little mini accommodations list that we're working on that's just helpful if people are in a hurry or we've got too many people in the line and we can't personally book something for them. We use this list to book our accommodations. I'm sure your supervisor knows how courteous, friendly, and professional you are, but I'd like to put in a good word. So we had lots of people telling us how great our students were and all of our employees. And last but not least, building community. So originally when we talked about building this visitor center, I thought it would be a fabulous idea that we could have local businesses come in and do demonstrations during the day when we were open, and we could use the space for functions. It could have, when we have, you know, say music in the landing in the evening, we could stay open later hours and just be that place for people that, you know, a lot of businesses close at 6 o'clock, even in the summertime. So we haven't got there yet because of COVID, but I was able to help out the Public Art Gallery. Michael held their annual meeting. Their building was filled with art and they just had no space for it. So I brought them in and I allowed them to key themselves out, and it worked really well for them. So I'm hoping that we can share that kind of availability for other people in the community. And I think that's about it. Does anybody have any questions for Paul or myself?
Yeah, no, and thank you very much, Wendy. Council may have some questions, but before they do, I just want to thank you again for bringing up the washroom question. I believe you brought it up last year as well. And I thought we were going to do something about it, and we need to do it. Your idea of partnering perhaps is a good idea because there are several locations in town where there are washrooms available. Mm-hmm. And we need to kind of publicize that for people. I know what it's like to have small kids and need to find a place in a hurry, or just need to find a place in a hurry. So yeah, appreciate that. We will do better. Yeah, I know people are listening. Yeah. So. Council, any questions, Council? Councilor Ludwig.
Thanks, Wendy. That was a great report.
Thank you.
I just have to, I'm curious about your stats, only because living here, it felt to me like there was lots of tourists in town.
Yes, there were lots of tourists. We all, it's subject to our own theory. The message was plan before you come. And so the world, because So I think people heeded that. I think they made their plans, they booked beforehand, they thought they gathered a lot of information from online. It was also be respectful, you know, get your groceries beforehand. Our grocery stores can't really take on all of your needs. So people were trying to be respectful and I think kind of live a little bit under the radar. I noticed people from Alberta, especially at the beginning, when I asked where they were from, because we keep the stats, they would sheepishly say Alberta and they'd ask how, you know, is it okay that we're here? And, you know, they were just a little bit nervous. So I think a lot of people just stayed under the radar. So I think I had another thought about that.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was wondering, is whether you kept those stats on where the people were from that were visiting.
Yeah, I can absolutely provide that information. I can tell you off the top of my head, though, I would say probably about 80% BC, Lower Mainland, Vancouver Island, and 20%, well, maybe 15% Alberta, and the rest of the 5% maybe made up of Ontario and Quebec.
Okay, interesting.
But I'm happy to check it out and send it to you guys.
I can potentially and help with that. I have recently subscribed to an AirDNA, which is a service that gives us information about the short-term rentals, and I can confirm that it was very busy, and the occupancy rate was around 85–90% in short-term rentals. So there was a lot of activity, and the stats also show that our web stats are also up. So a lot of people are using our website. And from my understanding, our September stats were even higher than July stats for the first time ever. So there's a lot of people traveling in September and October.
Interesting, thank you.
Councilors, other questions? Paul, I apologize. I don't have any kind of comments on your strategic plan because I just received a copy of it early this afternoon and I didn't have a chance to read it yet, so I will. And we are going to be doing our own strategic plan review, so update. So CIO, do you have comments?
Mr. Mayor, if I can just ask Paul about just a quick update on the MRDT and so much the process, but where we're at, just for clarity in the question around what happens to the short-term rentals, whether they qualify for a hotel tax as well or not. Just a little bit of that, please. Thank you.
The short-term rentals are all legislated to collect MRDT and PST. The online accommodation platforms such as Airbnb and VRBO have made a deal with the province to collect those taxes on behalf of the host and remit it to the province directly. Those funds are known, are still MRDT funds, and we do receive them, but they are sent to us in a different way. They're quarterly payments, and they're known as Online Accommodation Platform, or OAP funds. But ultimately, it's still MRDT collection, but they're labeled OAP. And that OAP fund also has new criteria that the government added, which was eligibility for affordable housing projects. I wrote a proposal because ultimately the two regional districts were needed to sign a letter of, they were the ones that needed to approve any housing plans. I wrote a proposal. They recently approved the plan for the OAP funds because there was a few caveats that we put in the proposal around workforce housing and some other items. Those plans are waiting for final approval from the housing authority, the provincial housing authority. So I'm still waiting to hear back. So they're essentially sitting in a bank. There's roughly $130,000 with 60% of that going to housing on the Sunshine Coast. As far as the MRDT renewal process, I'm about to formally start the process and reach out to the accommodations for support letters, which is part of the application process. It is due February the 1st, 2021. I need to have 51% of all accommodations supporting the initiative and 51% of the number of units of accommodation in total of the entire coast. It's a bit tricky because a number of venues are not open. So there's a number of questions that have been raised about whether they're eligible to vote on this process or not if they're not actually open. So there's a number of questions that are going back and forth between the ministry and tourism right now. But we hope to have that sorted out and hope to proceed and get the MRDT renewed. I have all the letters of support from the local governments already. Thank you for your letter. I do appreciate it. So the next step is to get the letters from the accommodators.
Councillor Kroll.
Thank you, Paul. With respect to the MRDT, there was a proposal to increase that rate, but it was decided because of potential hardship to tourism at this time that it would be locked in again, and I believe it's for 5 years at the current rate of 2%.
That's correct. We did an unofficial polling of the supporters of the MRDT from the first application. So I emailed the supporters and asked them if they would consider supporting the 3%. As the question was put to me from actually the SCRD wanted me to ask that question, which I did put out to a number of accommodators, and the polling came back sort of split. And ultimately, we need all of them to support 3% or it wouldn't happen. So it made us have to default back to 2% because, again, because of the hardship of COVID, there's a lot of operators that are quite concerned about the future, and raising it to 3% just wasn't, they just didn't have the appetite for it.
Okay, Paul and Wendy, see no further questions, or thank you for your presentations tonight. And Paul, we will have a chance to look at the strategic plan, and we'll hopefully, if we have any questions, Councillor, get back to you directly. And I see Councillor Kroll has come back with another question.
Thank you, Mayor Beamish. I just wanted some clarification on culinary tourism.
Oh, well, this is a pilot project by the Tourism Industry Association of Canada using federal dollars from the ministry. We were lucky to be selected for this pilot project. So it's going to be 2 facilitated workshops concurrently happening on November 19th and November 20th. And it's a facilitated workshop with all of our stakeholders invited to attend, to look at strategies to, create more culinary product, to create synergies amongst the existing businesses, to create packaging, and just look at what opportunities we have. Just as an example, the Sunshine Coast Ale Trail has expanded with new businesses coming on board. So that's just an example of the kind of synergy that can be created to create a product that's available year round. So it's going to help us, again, develop a year-round tourism product and also support, the businesses that exist here already, and create more attractions to visitors.
Councillor Lumley.
I know you can't convince people, and obviously you don't want to, but it's funny. It's almost like people are cutting off their nose to spite their face, because more more funds coming in would only profit the Sunshine Coast more. And just personally, I sold more expensive wines this year than I've ever sold in any summer. We were as busy, we were full all the time, but the number of people buying Dungeness crab, like high end, people are not afraid to spend money, especially when they're coming to the Sunshine Coast. I think people have to realize, the Sunshine Coast is kind of moving slowly above a lot of other destinations, and people won't be afraid to spend that money, and then it will only come back on a greater good for the entire Sunshine Coast and continuing that promotional, anyway, it's unfortunate, I guess. I know, and I understand it, but I'm telling you, the people coming here, they're just not afraid. They love it, and they're not afraid to spend money. So Anyway, keep up the good work.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I appreciate your comment. I think you are correct. The coast is quite a good value for travelers, especially the snowbirds are all locked in BC this year, and they're looking to spend money and find a place to go. And another anecdote I heard from BC Ferries was that the RV traffic has more than doubled because they have nowhere else to go. So, we have a captive BC audience, and the Sunshine Coast is well positioned.
We heard the same thing earlier this evening from the Harbor Authority in terms of the numbers of boats that have come in this summer that have been setting records for the Harbor Authority. Okay, we need to move on our agenda. I thank you for your presentations, for coming tonight, and
Thanks, everyone.
look forward to more and keep up the good work.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you very
everyone.
much. Thank you. Okay, our next presentation is Alan Williams and Jody Schick of the Transportation Choices Sunshine Coast Track, and to talk about the active transportation improvement survey results. I see Jody. Is Alan with you, Jody? Oh,
actually, Kylie's with me tonight, actually.
Okay. Welcome, Kylie. Welcome, Jody. And who's going to talk?
I think I'm the one that's talking. I just need to share my screen with you now.
Yeah. Go ahead. Floor is all yours.
Excellent. Thanks. Great. Thanks for having us here tonight. I think most of you are already familiar with TRAC. We're a membership organization here on the Sunshine Coast that advocates for active transportation. So cycling, walking, anything outside of your private vehicle. We also try and work on transit-related issues as well. So we came to this idea of a survey through a meeting with Michael Braun, the local new district head of MOTI on the Sunshine Coast in the spring. And we've, like many places around our jurisdictions, we're struggling to try and get MOTI to be more active in developing and improving infrastructure for cycling and walking on the Sunshine Coast. And frankly, we've seen little progress in that regard. So in a meeting, we are trying to look for headway into this. And he mentioned a funding stream that other communities have used called the Community Safety Enhancement Program, which is sort of billed as a funding mechanism for smaller projects focused more on safety of the traveling public, not just of active transportation, but for all aspects of traffic safety. And so he said that in other communities, they typically work with local government to come up with a list of projects to work on. We weren't aware that local government knew about this or had a list of any kind of their requests with MOTI at this point. So we basically took on collecting some information from active transportation users. So now we can present a list of prioritized areas to you. So the objectives of this survey was just to collect information and get our not only our members, but any people who are really walkers and cyclists on the Sunshine Coast to give us their input on how important improvements or how much improvements would be needed at certain locations. We came up with a short list of locations and described what these trouble spots were. We sent them out and got responses from people. And what we're doing out of this, we're providing this list directly to MOTI, and we're going and presenting this to local governments as well. So we've, Alan Williams went to the TAC committee with the SCRD last week. I'm meeting with you tonight, and another member is meeting with the District of Sechelt tomorrow. And we're really hoping this is just going to start a conversation. We're not sold on this list that we're providing you this information for tonight. We just want local governments to start advocating directly and strongly with MOTI for actions in their own town and hopefully supporting requests by our neighbors for improvements in their area as well. You guys are probably well aware of the different funding sources to fund infrastructure projects. The Community Safety Enhancement Program is something that MOTI typically funds entirely itself. They do the work. It's really a MOTI-oriented project, whereas Bike BC and a lot of the other streams are communities applying to upper levels of government for money, and it would be the town of Gibson's job to undertake that work. And typically, as my understanding, I'm sure your staff have let you know, when you need more money, you often need to apply to these other funding sources. So this just gives you an idea of where the spread of locations were that we included in our poll. We focused between Langdale and Seashelt, partly because that's where the stretch of the coast that we're most familiar with. We have more members here and we got to let more feedback from people in this area. This is not to say that there are not a lot of other areas that are in need of this type of action, but these are the locations that we presented at this time to the people in the survey. So the survey respondents, a little bit about them. There was quite a few from Gibsons, a lot from Roberts Creek and a lot from Seashelt. So about 2/3 of the people who responded were from those three areas. Not surprisingly, almost everyone who responded identified as a cyclist. That was slightly disappointing to us. We wanted to also include a lot of walkers and transit users in this. But the results are skewed by the people who responded, which are primarily cyclists and cyclists who actually get out fairly often. So the people who responded are common cyclists who must be comfortable riding our highways at least some of the time. In the lower right there, that's probably more for us. We were really excited that the majority of respondents were actually not members of TRAC already. It just showed that we had some reach outside of our core base. So the results, I'm not sure if you've looked at this already. It's interesting that the top two areas are actually kind of at either end of the Sunshine Coast, or the section that we were looking at. So Marine Drive between Langdale and Gibsons was the top. And then the second one is actually Highway 1 shoulder in the Selma Park area. So the eastbound lane dropping down into Wilson Creek. So those gathered attention from people, not just from Gibsons and Seashelt, but from other areas as well. The three that are directly sort of related to Gibsons, the top one there is just peripherally related to Gibsons, but it is bordering on the town of Gibsons, is the section of Highway 101 between Pratt and Ocean View Drive area. This area has quite a lot of people walking on it as well as cycling for Highway 101. It's probably one of the most walked on shoulders that I come across. And it was identified as a high priority for people who responded to see something improve there. We throw out the option of having, we really like the idea of a multi-use path off of the highway on this section, just because of the number of people that it would serve, as opposed to just improving shoulders. The other one is Gibson's Way from School Road to Sunnycrest Road. I'm sure you're all aware that there really aren't bike shoulders on this section of highway. There's sidewalks which serve the walking public, but it's one of the last chunks of Highway 101 that has 0 shoulders, and it's right in the core of Gibsons. And the last one is quite a ways down, but that's the other section of Highway 101, North Road between School Road and Hillcrest. We didn't include going all the way to Pratt because it's our understanding that there will be bike lanes on the rest of that remainder of that section. One of the things that came out of this survey is there was quite a lot of, well, most people thought almost all of the list was at least a medium or high priority. I think that's because we picked out spots that are have people actually identify as having some problems with them. So you can see in here as well, there's a few other locations that are more oriented towards crossing the highway. They're mainly outside of Gibsons. So the Poplars Trailer Park, I'm sure everyone's aware of the challenges there. And similarly at Ocean View Drive, those were ranked quite highly as well. So just to take a quick look at the Ocean View to Pratt section, these are the kind of sections that are there that are working for walkers and cyclists right now. The upper picture shows the sort of off-road bike lane and sidewalk near pace setters. I think that's a new extension of the town of Gibsons out in that area. So we're basically hoping that that can be extended all the way into Gibsons. That section there ends just past the telephone or the power pole you can see in that picture. And really simply, frontage roads are great alternatives to the highway. So the lower picture there is closer to veterans. That's just somebody well off the highway in a much more comfortable setting that's also quite adequate for cycling. The Gibsons Way section from School Road to Sunnycrest, the top picture there is what we have right now. There's a bit of a wide lane. There's a bike lane closer to Gibsons Elementary, and there's a good sidewalk there. But what we see in urban environments now can be much better. And so the lower picture there is something that is really more accessible to serve the population at the school and a wider range of people who would like to get on their bikes, but are really reluctant right now because they don't want to share the road with vehicles. So the results to us, there's a few broad themes in them. People generally wanted to see a bikeable shoulder on the highway stretching between Langdale and really beyond Seashell. They kind of wanted, I think most people wanted to see that a long time ago. We still don't really have a decent shoulder. That's, in our view, a minimum. Another theme that came up a lot is improved maintenance. There's sections even within Gibsons that see pretty infrequent maintenance. And the third is a construction of a coast-wide non-highway route. We see that using Marine Drive, we see it using Lower Road, Red Roofs Road and Half Moon Bay, and connecting that with something that's off the highway as a longer term goal. So out of this meeting, what we're really hoping the town of Gibsons will do is becoming really engaged with MOTI on things in your area. So having a list, whether it's our list or something that is pared down, we're just hoping that you have something on paper that you can go back to MOTI every year and say, how are we doing with ticking off these things on the list? Some of them will be maybe funded through the Community Safety Enhancement Program. Maybe others you'll have to find some other way to see them get done, but things to do with the highway seem to fall through the cracks. The second point I think is quite key is that what we've found is that you get somewhere with MOTI when you have good staff engagement and there's a strong council support of staff's role in that as well. Unfortunately, they're not a willing participant in all of these things that we would like to see them do. And the third, the things that we've laid out here, it'd just be great if they were integrated into your own active travel planning. So I'm not sure at what point Gibsons is in their active travel planning. I know that they're engaged in the Travels to School for Children's program, but maybe you're looking at doing an active travel plan for the town of Gibson sometime in the future too. So that's really the main things we wanted to cover. The rest of it is, I've got some slides if you wanted to look at other locations, but that's really the core things that we wanted to convey to you guys.
Jody, thank you for that. we will be going into our own strategic planning update, and this is useful information for us as well. I think, as you know, we've had conversations, challenging conversations with Moti and sometimes in some projects. Minister Trevino, I understand, is not running for re-election this time, so we will be dealing with a new minister again in that area. So it'll be interesting to see how that communication builds up and develops. And I think we need to make an early start with a new government, with a new minister, as soon as we can, and express both support and request assistance in those areas. So it's never easy dealing with them. And it just, yeah, something flashed through my mind when you mentioned Roberts Creek Lower Road. And that's, I'd like to take a look at a map and see what the kind of the connection would be between the boulevard area down there below the waterfront in area E and connecting through the Lower Road, which it can't be a long connection. And at that point,
That's a tough connection, unfortunately.
is it?
Yeah, I know some other, I think Alan Williams and I think some SCRD staff have possibly looked at that. There's a few road allowances there, but it's challenging terrain.
Is it? Okay, right.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that. So just it can't be a long distance. That's all. And so it's just a challenge then. Okay. Council, any questions? Council D'Andrade.
Thank you, Jody, for the presentation. Yeah, it's interesting because these are not new issues, and still 10 years pass or more, and we're still the same. Not exactly, but in relationship, for example, the highway, it is extremely dangerous. I've done for 2 years, and it's quite pleasant, but very dangerous. Every day I took this highway, I kind of pray for my life. And especially going from here to Seychelles. And so I like your suggestions about becoming an annually request, because hopefully at one point something would move. And I think with the highway, it has to be a regional effort. We have been talking, we have been having good relationships and doing regional planning. I think this is one issue that has to be like done through all the regions in relationship to the highway, and obviously each individual municipality can also focus on their own priorities. But I really appreciate that, because it's not something that we don't know. Staff is fully aware, but it becomes like a big rock to move, and we need to have some game plan. And I think this will do it. Like some insistence sometimes pays off, right? So I really appreciate that you initiated, and hopefully, yeah, I would like to see, because last time we saw the plan, for sure the town of Gibsons has a plan, but it has been a long time. So it will be interesting to, in our strategic halfway through our mandate, to look at this and compare and see and prioritize. And perhaps Councillor Crow can initiate something at the regional level, some conversation in terms of the highway.
Councillor Kroll.
Just to address what Councillor D'Andrade mentioned, we had at the Transportation Committee meeting last week, we did have the report from TRAC, and then Moti were there, and it's, I would say a great deal of it is budget. Whether they agree about active transportation lanes. Right now they've run out of money to remark highways on the coast for this year. The budget's expired. So the one thing that did come out of it is Team Sunshine Coast dealing with the new Minister of Transportation, because a lot of the government departments tend to operate in silos, and that's become blatantly apparent. We've, from a regional district point of view and the collaborative energies between the District of Seashelt and the town of Gibsons and the Seashelt Nation. We've put a request in to staff that they keep the feet to the fire with whoever the new minister is to continue negotiating with us in the good favor that was incurred even in the meetings just prior to UBCM this year. So it was very frustrating to have a really good relationship with a minister who listened. Not always did what she heard translate to feet on the ground and shovels on the ground, but we had a good working relationship. And even the local representative for Modi on the coast is very frustrated because he has very limited say in what happens. It has to come from above. So Team Sunshine Coast working collaboratively is going to probably have the most impact in moving this forward. You know, and there are people in all areas who are very keen on seeing this happen. So, you know, rest assured, you know, progress is made painfully slowly.
Councillor Ludwig.
Yeah, thanks for your report, Jody. I see this as kind of being two issues. There's bicycle paths within our municipal boundary, and then there's bicycling paths outside of our boundary. And I think Councillor Kroll addressed the outside of our boundary very well. And you know, he talked about what we're trying to do at a more regional scale, essentially. I'm afraid this question is going to sound somewhat stupid and facetious, and I don't mean it to be, but I just have to ask because I don't understand. Is it not possible for us just to call all our sidewalks multi-purpose paths and just let cyclists ride their bikes on our sidewalks? And the reason I say that is because I live on Gibsons Way, where we just decided to make it a multi-purpose path, and it functions fine. We don't have the kind of population like they do in Vancouver, where there's so many pedestrians walking and cycling that you need two separate paths. And so my fear is, as a council, we're juggling multiple issues, including climate change. And I see our roads getting wider and wider with concrete when I'd love to see a meridian down the middle with trees growing out of it. So I mean, I'm just challenging, I'm putting that out there to everyone just to think about, because we have to factor in all these issues, all these, you know, competing priorities and whatnot. And I just, until our population gets so busy that we need two separate paths for two different activities, I'd like to see us start thinking creatively about how we can just use one type of path for both. And I don't know, I apologize if that you're probably thinking.
Well, I think it's a good question. I think it depends on how many people are using them. I think if you looked at the sidewalks in Lower Gibsons, you'd probably say that you probably couldn't ride a bike on there and walk on it. So, and similarly, we've got the walking path opposite your house that is, you know, seldom, you know, not a lot of people on it, and it works fine even though it's the same size as the sidewalk. You know, at a certain point, they're not going to work very well. I think when you get into more of a highway situation where people are riding a bit quicker, then you reach that limit even faster, because it's just uncomfortable for pedestrians to have someone going by them on a bike when they're going quickly. So I understand, especially for kids, I think sharing sidewalks with slow moving bicycles and walkers probably isn't a big problem. And maybe it's what you do until you have something better as well. I don't really know the answer for that.
Well, and that's kind of what I'm thinking. Like, I'm wondering if we need to be thinking about this in a more long-term phased approach, looking at demand and planning around that. Because I think that might be an easier way to incorporate it into our town planning, essentially. Anyways, it's just
our view right now is to just ask for something from the government that actually has much more money than we do. So I guess that's why we're here tonight, is the status quo is not really working in some way.
Right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Eileen, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, sorry, I'm the data analyst, so I was just here to answer any
Okay.
questions that
All right.
came up.
Thank you for that. Councilor Diendrad, final question, we have to move on.
Well, I was just going to make the point. I take what Councillor Ledwig said, but at the same time, we need to look at, in a way, first, the province gives huge incentive for people to walk. and it's very uncomfortable for I mean, we have a high amount of seniors, and actually, even according to the housing assessment report, I mean, this number is growing. So right now we are probably around 40% of seniors, and our population is aged. So now it's a competing, right? You have people very slow on the sidewalk, and suddenly you have a bike. So obviously, for immediate solution, yes. But I think we need to think, because to a certain extent is incompatible, right? It is, you're walking and then suddenly a bike, zoom. And I know, because I biked a lot in Vancouver, and there's always conflict, right, with pedestrians. And
Yeah. I don't think we're going to solve that problem tonight, but thank you. It'll be a good conversation. But I do think we have to keep the pressure on, and keep looking for small wins, and take what we can get. We tried with the recent repaving on through town here. I still haven't seen the improvements that we asked for, but we'll just have to keep working on that. They sound like they hear us, but they don't necessarily listen to us, and that's an issue. Councillor Crowell, we've got to move on. We've got a long agenda tonight, and we're just at first hour. We've just done delegations. Yeah. Do you want to really say something?
Mention is the resurfacing of Marine Drive for part of it, where they have resurfaced and then widened it so it's not sort of like a cobblestone road.
Good, thank you. Okay, everyone, thank you very much, Kylie and Jody, for bringing that to attention, and thank you for your report. It will serve us well for our own planning purposes going forward. And as a copy of that was being provided to the ministry, but through the meetings. But will you be sending a copy to the minister when she comes on board? He or she comes on board?
That's a good idea. I'm sure we'll do that.
I think it's probably a good introduction to them. Good, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Council, will move on. The next item on our agenda is inquiries, and this section is for inquiries on anything related to the council business tonight. Once again, except for the Poplar Road and Davies Road, which has been subject to public inquiry. So that if there's anything else that the public wishes to inquire about that is on the agenda, please make yourself known.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I missed my cue. At this time, I'll ask anyone who'd like to ask a question to please use the raise the hand feature at the bottom of the screen, and I'll turn on your audio and video. I'm not seeing any, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. We'll move on with our agenda. And we'll go firstly to the Planning and Development Committee meeting of October 6th, and recommendation that the minutes be received from that meeting. Councillor Crowell, thank you. Councillor D'Andrade, thank you. All in favor of receipt? Thank you. Development permit for form and character for 20 townhouses at 741 Hillcrest Road. Recommendation is that staff be directed to notify neighbors of the requested variance to reduce the side setbacks from 4.5 meters to 3 meters. And it's in relation to development permit 2020-10 for 741 Hillcrest Road. Somebody like to make that recommendation? Councillor Crowell, seconded by Councillor Ladwig. Discussion, council? Okay, we'll wait till we hear back from the public. All in favor? Thank you very much. Next one is form of character permit for 2020, a DP 2020-13 application for building improvements at 1036 Seamount Way. And the recommendation of the development permit in the form of character of the proposed building expansion at 1036 Seamount Way be approved, subject to receipt of landscape cost estimate and the incorporation of bird deflector measures. Somebody care to move that? Councillor Crowell, Councillor D'Andrade, thank you. Further discussion, council? All in favor? Thank you. Okay. Committee of the whole meeting held earlier today, and this is a resolution that being this recommendation go directly to council. And the recommendation is that grants of assistance round 2 be approved as follows. Gibson Senior Society, $2,843, and Sunshine Coast Bear Alliance Society in the amount of $2,000. Somebody care to make that recommendation? Councillor D'Andrade, thank you. Councillor Kroll, second. Okay, thank you. Further discussion, council? All in favor? Thank you very much. Administration reports. Recommendation that the Director of Finance's report on Merrill Haynes Trust Fund report be received for information. Thank you. Councillor Councillor Ludwig, this is for receipt of the report. All in favor? Okay. Now, we have a presentation of that report from the Director of Finance, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this report is just being provided for council's information in the event that the town receives a request for the use of these funds in the future. I provided two key definitions from the agreement that give you some context on the criteria, as well as some background information on a previous request that came from the regional district. And as mentioned, the information is just being provided at this time for your information, just so you have some background on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The context of this, council, is that, as you're aware, the regional district has not as yet to open or respond to our request in writing that we made over a month ago for information relative to the opening of the pool. One of the pieces of information we have received is that the potential cost of COVID protections for the pool is somewhere in the neighborhood of $2,500 to $10,000 are the two numbers we received. And you know, people from our community are interested in seeing the pool open. And the opportunity that we have, if council chooses to move forward on this, is to offer the regional district that we will pay the COVID hardening costs as a capital cost for the pool, taking that kind of impediment away from the process, because it's something they would not have budgeted for this year. And they are, I'm not suggesting we support the operating costs, because I think that that's a general taxation issue and a membership issue or a fee issue. But the hardening costs were not anticipated. We do have this fund. It was for the purpose of capital improvements to the pool. And I would consider these kinds of costs to be capital costs. They're relatively minor in the sense that they are, you know, somewhere in that region of 2,500 to 10,000. And the idea being that the council, we could step up and support our community in terms of saying, you know, we're prepared to help out in terms of the reopening of this pool. Let's move on, let's move forward with it. And my suggestion to council is that perhaps a resolution to the effect that we authorize the expenditure of up to $5,000 to the regional district for the cost of COVID measures to help in the reopening of the Gibsons pool, so that people can have access to it. And I don't know how council feels about that, but wanted to make sure you understood what the Merrill Haynes Fund was. We've generated a lot of interest in terms of financial interest over the year, as well as interest from people saying, what's happening to that money? Well, it's growing. So it's there. And if the regional district ever came through with a solid capital improvement, such as an adjoining meeting room or adjoining area for yoga or something else like that, we would certainly be prepared to participate in that as well. But I'll leave it for council. I've said my piece. Councillor Kroll.
Just for some clarification, Mayor Beamish, the letter that the town sent to the regional district because of the way it fell into the procedure, I think it was the October 8th board meeting where it finally was addressed. Prior to that, we had reached out to the regional district and indicated that we were willing to share with capital expense, and our CAO made that perfectly clear to the board. Just to go back a bit further, when the board was looking at opening recreation facilities, opening one ice surface, one dry floor, and one pool was because of reduced revenue and increased costs of operating it was looked at being a 5% tax increase directly to the regional district component of taxes going into the new budget season. The board is currently looking at deflecting that tax increase out of reserves. The cost of opening the Gibsons pool, if it opened the 1st of October, was a little over $61,000 between October to the end of the year, which would be, again, a tax cost. The regional district is looking at opening the pool in the new year. They lost some recreational staff over the COVID closure. I've asked the regional district, the capacity of the pool, should it reopen. The information I've received back is that it would be about 25 people, and I've asked for clarification whether that's 25 total or 25 swimmers and plus staff, and also whether there is the capacity within the staff of the recreation department to physically open the pool. So those latter two questions I'm still waiting on answers for. I believe the board is looking at, depending on how things go with the seashell pool opening and the other recreational revenues, of considering opening the pool in the new year.
One of my concerns, and you raised it there, is the staff. I suspect that the longer it remains closed, the fewer qualified people will be available in the community to reopen it in a hurry. So that some people, I know that even the seashell, they've taken their recertification. And I think that I don't know that there's a move here to recertify the staff that would be using this pool. And I think that's something that should be strategically done in any event. So, Councillor Ledwig?
Well, just one other thing, if I may mention, I did mention the concern that was brought up by our youth counselor of the employment opportunities for students who act as lifeguards and things like that. So,
Yeah, thank you. I'll go to Councillor Ledwig first, and then Councillor Gravity. Yeah, Councillor Ledwig.
Thanks, Mayor Beamish. So I've got a few questions and comments about this. First of all, I want to know who the town's financial advisor is, because the interest on this has been awesome. I'd like to know who I should be investing with. The other question I have is, if we've been sitting on a big pot of money, as someone who has suffered through multiple birthday parties at the Gibsons pool, why have we not spent this money and done what the fund was requested to do?
It's got to be for capital improvements. So until the regional district comes forward with a plan to do something like that, the money, it would remain. The previous plan was to use, the idea was to use it to do the upgrades to the hot tub, and that was not approved by council. As
No,
you
I understand.
know, that's right. So
But I understand that, but the fund was, the woman set the money aside for a multi-purpose room to accommodate lifeguard, dry land instruction, and children's birthday parties.
the regional
So why-
district. Well, what happened at the time is that it was right at the transition when the pool moved from being a town-owned pool to the regional pool. The money remained with the town, but the regional district never made capital improvements to the pool that would use that money. Ideally, as I say, if they would come forward with the idea of a multi-purpose room in there off the side, that be prepared to fund some additional thing, but they've not. That has not been the case in recent years.
So, okay, I sorry, I'm not trying to be difficult. I'm still struggling to understand why we wouldn't put a motion forward to the SCRD saying we've got $200,000 to improve our pool that was donated to us by a woman that wanted to see these improvements done. Will you support doing it? And why not use this closure to take advantage of the time to get some work done on our pool? I mean, I recognize now it's getting too late anyways, but
They're aware that we have the money.
but we haven't we put a request forward to have the hot tub worked on. We didn't put a
We
request.
did not put that request forward. That was their request. They
They
put the request to us to use the money for the hot tub.
So why don't we put a request forward to them to put?
Something to think about. That would be up to council. That would be a portion of funding and possibly further by grants. But yeah.
say something now?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So I just wanted to say, I think that supporting them, like giving them the 5,000, I think you said top dollars to open the pool with COVID protocols and whatnot and using it from that fund is a good idea, just because I think that when this fund was created, the idea of a pandemic was probably not like it wasn't thought that the pool would be closed because of that. And I think that the idea was that people could enjoy the pool and use it. And if the pool's closed, then their capital improvements aren't going to happen. Nothing's going to happen. So I just think that's a good idea.
Thank you for that. Yeah. Councillor Lumley.
I mean, it baffles me. And it's just figures, the regional district, this and that. I mean, I'm living through it with the community center with a child I have that plays hockey there. You pay the same amount of money, you get half the services. I just don't get, they can, like you said, goes from 2,000 to 10,000. Like what, like, this is all public information and we don't get any information. It's just like, oh no, it'll cost too much. You just go, well, what are the costs? And then the cost range, you don't have it. Like, it's baffling and frustrating for a community to like have a pool and you say, we just want to open the pool and we'll pay for the extra cost to open the pool. And nothing happens. It's like insane. Like, it makes no sense to me. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess the greatest evil is that the regional district has control over the operation of the pool. It's like Gibson should just take it back and say, you know what? Hey, we'll look after our own, like we'll just take it out of your hands and say, don't worry about it. We got this, right? So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's just he says, she says. It's like pretty frustrating, like as even a public official or even as a person that just is sitting at home and wants to use the goddamn pool, right? I mean, it's cold and it's rainy and it's getting dark. Like, what are people supposed to do? And they can't go down for a swim and exercise and rehabilitate. It's insanity. It really is. It's like, it's stupid. So that's my thoughts.
There's many people in this community who agree with you. Councillor Kroll?
It's frustrating. And I agree with, all the correspondence that we've received at the town have been forwarded to the regional district. The original cost, as Councillor Lumley referred to, is the $10,000 or whatever it was for PPE. The budgets for recreation with the regional district are mind-boggling, and we have asked, like, give us the cost of operating a single facility and what the revenue is so we can look at it. Aside from the cost, the capital cost of the requirements to meet COVID restriction is the $61,000 operating cost, and probably the worst thing we did was give away the pool or have it incorporated into the regional district. But it is an expensive $61,000 to operate it for 3 months. And for us, that's a 3% tax increase.
But it would be operating without COVID. Like I don't get it. Like, so they would have shut the pool down, like, irrespective of no COVID, they would have just shut the pool down anyway? No, it was shut down. Who cares what the operating costs are? The operating costs. The operating costs for the arena, the operating costs for the fire hall, the operating costs for anything, that's the operating cost. Yeah. That's what it costs to operate. No one's complaining about the price of the cost. The only people complaining about it is the regional district. You know what I mean? I guarantee if you ask every citizen to say, hey, listen, would you pay an extra $10 to be able to use the pool? They'd say yes. I don't know. It's like they've decided to do one. It's like they've got their blinders on. They're like a horse, like with blinders on, and they're unwilling to accept any reasonable argument from anybody else, especially the town where the pool is in. And like Councillor Ladwig says, there's a giant fund gaining interest because we can't use the money in the pool because the regional district won't let us. It's just like, it's mind blowing. It really is. It's like dumbfounding.
Yeah, the money, the trust fund is for capital, not.
Well, I mean, you know what I'm saying, right? It's like.
No, I agree. You should hear the screaming.
Well, they've asked, it's sitting there, like it doesn't, there's been suggestions to use the money and the regional district has gone silent, but anyway, doesn't matter.
There's, equally.
Well, it does matter, but.
Screaming going on about
council
and Seashalt.
Yeah. I still believe council this time we would be in, I would like to see us demonstrate our intent and approve the funding for the COVID hardening for the facility. That takes away one aspect of argument. It shows good faith with our community, shows support for our community, and that goes. So if somebody would make that motion, I say up to $5,000 because it's somewhere between 2,500 and 10, and 5 seems to be a good number. I mean, we could say up to $10,000, but I hear so. Councillor Kroll.
The last figures I had from the CAO at the regional district was 2,500.
Yeah. And
so, 5,000 is double, I think is a bit excessive.
The newspaper reported 10,000 last week, and that's where we are. So
well, that was before they seriously looked at it following our letter. But I would certainly support up to 5.
Yeah. And Councillor D'Andrade, you would second that? Any further discussion on that issue? That the council approve up to $5,000 to be expended from the Mural Haynes Fund for capital improvements to assist with the reopening of the pool in terms of COVID hardening, the Gibsons pool. All in favor of that? Okay, no opposed, so thank you. I did talk to Chair Pratt today. That I understand is back on the agenda for Thursday of this week, and Councillor Kroll can pass on this resolution on that aspect. So, Councillor Ladwig, sorry.
Sorry, I just can't let this go. I like now. I'm actually kind of.
We need to come up with an idea then.
I have one. I'm going to make a motion that we get a quote from a qualified builder on an extension at the Gibsons pool for what did this woman want? 16 years ago, she gave us money for a multi-purpose room to accommodate a lifeguard dryland instruction site room and children's birthday parties. I've attended birthday parties in the rain in umbrellas at the pool because there's nowhere for kids to hang out. She's given us money for it. I think we should get a certified builder to give it. And we should go to the take a proactive act, go to the SCRD and say, we want to see improvements to our pool. Here's the money.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. I think that I just reframe the resolution might be that we ask the SCRD to get a quote because we can't actually hire a contractor to go on their site to get a quote, but we can ask the SRD to get a quote for a multi-purpose room.
Perfect.
Okay, you've moved that. Councillor D'Andrade is second to that. Discussion. And I see Councillor Lumley's hand and Councillor Kroll's hand up. So Councillor Lumley, I'll let you go.
Okay, be careful. I was on council when the hot tub was going to be fixed or redone. And I'm telling you right now, you're asking, like when Wendy Gilbertson had all the information for the people that made the hot tub and what it would take to fix the hot tub. And you'd have to, I don't have the numbers obviously in front of me, but I mean, like as the discussion went along, and Manny will know just as good as I was, it was like their quote, besides what like we thought it would take, like what the professional that actually put the thing in, I think it was a difference of like $300,000. And I'm not even joking. So just be careful with asking the SCRD to start giving you quotes, right? And don't expect like anything in writing. Just, David will come to the next Gibsons town meeting. here's how much it's going to cost.
Okay. I'd like to change that
No
motion. to be
offense,
in
David.
writing.
I mean, no offense, but I
And I'd
mean,
like to see three estimates.
Councillor Kroll?
A couple of things. You know, I agree that the money is there and, you know, it's valuable. I think the time at which it should be utilized, the board have requested the regional district to do an asset inventory of structures such as the rec centers, the pools, and what is the life expectancy of them. And I would be a little loath to see us put money, you know, into this. You're not going to get a playroom for the money that's here. It's, you know, a public access building, sprinklered, meeting, you know, earthquake standards and step code upgrades for building is you know, it's going to be right through the roof. But what I would suggest is that at such time that, you know, they're looking at a new pool for Gibsons, we're getting good return on this investment, is that money, you know, be used properly to enhance the you know, the Muriel Haynes Trust Fund, and that she, you know, there really is a good bang for the buck. But you know what, we need to know what the current life expectancy of that pool is. It's stupid to build an addition on it and then 5 years down the road the building is decommissioned.
Councillor Ladwig?
Well, haven't we just opened up a whole can of worms here? Well, then maybe we should be asking the SCRD to give us a life expectancy estimate as well while we're doing. I mean,
that's what the board have asked them for.
Our pool, then let's open up this issue because our pool's too small. It doesn't provide our needs for our community. It's under serviced. So maybe we need to have this whole thing opened up. For the time being, fine, 5,000 can come from this to get it going right now. But this has created a little bit of a,
yeah.
And I'd like to see action on our pool, like this. Whether so, I hear what you're saying, Councillor Kroll. The likelihood of us getting a new pool in this town, I'm just being honest, before my kids have kids,
yeah,
is so low that I think this money, and I understand the hot tub. I can see why jackhammering up plumbing and servicing a hot tub could be expensive. This is just an addition. I know it's a public space. It's just a room. That's all that she wanted, was a room. And I maybe it's not quite enough, but I bet it's close.
Yeah. Okay, call the question. I mean, the question's a good one to ask. It opens up a conversation with the regional district, and it lets them know the council town council is intent on having something happen. We haven't seen the response yet, but call the question, and on the recommendation resolution, all in favor of asking them to give us a quote, you know,
with 3 estimates,
yeah,
in writing.
Okay, I'm in favor. Yeah. And opposed? Seeing none opposed. Corporate officer?
No, I was just asking for some clarity on what the motion was, as there was a lot of discussion there,
yeah,
but you clarified, so I'm good. Thank you.
And it may come back, it may simply open up a conversation for us with them. And I think it's a conversation that's timely and that needs to be had, because I am concerned that the longer the pool remains closed, the more people get used to it being closed, and find it hard to open. And I think that there is a petition going around. I was informed today there'd be a petition from the community to support opening the pool, an online petition. And that will also have some weight, I hope, in decision making. But I appreciate the council supported moving ahead with saying, well, let's take one impediment out of your way right now. And if it's just the operating cost, I agree. It would have been the operating cost with or without COVID. So that I think we need to look at that. So, okay, have we had enough of that? We'll move on to 8.2, which is the public art and public spaces policy. And there's a short report from the corporate officer on that. Did you wish to speak to that, corporate officer?
No, Mr. Mayor, I think it speaks for itself.
This is I'll bring this forward because it's part of the Public Arts Committee. This is the town has the policy number 6.6, which was actually adopted in 2006. I probably drafted it at the time and drafted looking at other policies. The Public Art Committee, one of the first steps that they did is to understand the kind of their terms of reference and what it is that should do. Looked at the policy and felt that it needed some updating, but not wholly. We looked at, in doing this, we also looked at Tofino and Victoria and Richmond and other small places and see what their policies are. And they were all very similar. They're all probably written once by the same consultant and then copied 10 times. And that's what tends to happen in this world. But some of the things they felt needed to be said, and the idea of putting the preamble in there to talk about the importance of public art and public spaces, not just public art, and then looking at definitions, adding to some word changes. And this is not intended to be tonight. Wouldn't be asking council to adopt this policy, but maybe to refer it to staff for further comment, because one of the things that's in here is I think it was previously under the current policy administered by the director of parks, or the manager of parks, well, the director of parks and recreation, which we don't have anymore. A suggestion here was that we go to the director of planning. It also identified the opportunity for funding and identifies the idea of selling donated works. I mean, people want to donate paintings. They want to donate art. And there's a lot more of that goes around. I'm moving. I just donated 2 major paintings to the art gallery in town here because I have no more wall space, and they were paintings of a acknowledged Sunshine Coast artist, but not one living today, sort of thing, not one of our current artists, and so the art gallery now has those. I don't mind if they auction them off and use that money to buy something that they really want. And I think that's the same thing that should be with us. If people want to donate something to the town and with the knowledge of that we will use it for fundraising purposes, that's fine too. The other way to get money for public art that we might want to have is community amenity funds or annual building permits. These are traditional ways of getting money into that fund. So that was the idea, was simply to update this policy. Thought I'd pass it to the recommendation would be to refer to staff for review and comment, and because committee should not be drafting policy for the town, but the staff should then have a chance to look at it, and council can have any comment on it as well in terms of the policy. And that was the intention of this document here, was to move it forward to see if we can just update the existing policy that we have. Any questions from council of that? Councilor Diendrad.
It's more a comment. I appreciated that you made the highlights, so it was easy to understand what has been added. So yeah. Any suggestion in the future that maybe this is a good format, because sometimes we get the new policy, but you don't know what was before, what was taking off or something.
Right.
It makes it easier. And is there a difference between the blue highlight and the yellow, or?
I don't have it in highlights on my copy, so I can't tell you that.
Okay. Maybe it's not important. I just saw some were blue and some were yellow. So.
Yeah.
Color coding.
Yeah. It could have just been what button I pushed at the time.
Okay.
Councilor Ladwig.
Thanks, Mayor Beamish. So I gave this a read, and I think it's really good. It's very all-encompassing.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot there. It covers just about everything, so it's good. I brought this up at our last meeting simply because, I had some thoughts around a vision for what we could do with art here in Gibsons, and the one thing that I feel this policy maybe could require or benefit from is a bit more of a vision for what it is that we really want out of art for our community. And And I just want to tell council very quickly, I took the time to send Mayor Beamish like a 1.5 pager on kind of what this vision was that I had. And then just today I realized all I had to do was go to Castlegar's website and they had already drafted the whole thing. So if you can bear with me, I just want to read you a couple, like very small paragraphs of what they're doing. So Castlegar has an art walk, and I think we've all received this brochure in the mail, in our mailboxes. It says, and I know, but so I guess the question is, do we want to get into the business of buying art for the town, or do we want to get in the business of fostering relationships between business and art and making it more of a tourism draw? And so, and it's for us to talk about. Okay, so just very quickly, Castlegar's annual art walk runs from late June to mid-September. The successful partnership between business and the arts has fostered a real focus on the arts in our Kootenai communities, attracting visitors and showing them what we are all about. The call for artists goes out each January with a late March deadline. The artists are then matched up with local businesses as venues. A colorful one-of-a-kind art walk brochure advertising artist venues and other local attractions is distributed to tourist information centers throughout the Kootenays, as well as other towns and communities with support that supports art walks. You know, beautiful art walk street banners go up and it becomes a real draw for the community. Now, I'm putting that out there for us to think about, because I do think the Sunshine Coast is an awesome location for that type of venue. And before we totally adopt a new policy, I think we should be asking ourselves, what do we want to get out of this? And maybe that is way too ambitious. Maybe we don't have the volunteers for that. I just wanted to flag that as a potential opportunity, because as we heard tonight from Wendy from the Tourism Sunshine Coast, you know, she directs them to that nice man with his history walk and the museum. But what a fabulous opportunity it would be if we could also provide them a arts walk brochure and have them go around town, go down to Smitty's, go to the Tap Works, like go around town and check off all their art pieces and really make a go of it. So that's it.
Yeah, I'd also like to say this is not a new policy. This is just amendments to existing policy. So as opposed to it's not new. So they, councilors, I see your hand, Councilor Diandret.
Yeah, I fully support what Councillor Ledwig suggested, because I mean, we have the art crawl that it became now, it's an iconic event. This is a town, the whole Sunshine Coast, one of the, actually Roberts Creek has the highest amount of artists per capita in Canada. It used to be one of the statistics that I remember. So I think we should not even think about capacity right now. It's just this focus, this investment, to have the vision, because I think that's the way to go. And this is also a differentiation marketing strategy, right? Like, yeah.
Councillor Kroll.
I think I mentioned it was probably back in June. I was over in Sydney, and they have some incredible art along their seawalk. And then through, the main street, they, again, the art installations, they have sidewalks that allow for it. They've got incredibly wide sidewalks. The seawalk itself is wide. There's areas where you can pull off, and, the art is beautifully displayed. And I think, this going to the planning department, and acquisition of art for a community is great. We discussed very briefly the issues of redoing a mural, but one has to be cautious of creating art for a community that also isn't sustainable. Like a mural painted outside is, for its initial inception, is great, but then as it starts to weather, the artist moves on or passes away, who maintains it? So it becomes sort of temporary art, which is a bit unfortunate. I personally like the idea of art being acquired for the community that can be displayed in public buildings, or ultimately one day that we do have a real public art gallery that is owned by the town, and it's building a collection for the town. And until such time as we have that, having sort of, permanent art outside, you know, or wherever it is, I think, but it needs to be art that's permanent. You know, you look at some of the murals around town and they're looking very sad.
Yeah, I think it's always a challenging discussion, and then also what is art in other people's minds certainly is challenging. I'm not sure that I think you'd have to redo the whole policy and look for different people to do a festival every year. I think that Seashell has that right now with their they have an art person, Siobhan Smith, and so that's a position, and they manage that kind of process. But that's, you know, it is actually on the agenda. Your proposal, Councillor Ladwig, is on the agenda for the art committee tomorrow night to discuss. And they are artists, so. But the direction that this council it would not be the same policy. It would be a different policy. Because it would not be looking at permanence and juries and stuff like that. It wouldn't be looking at worrying about maintenance and things of that nature. It'd be an annual event and event planning. So, yeah, and we have had art walks before in this town. We have had them back in the early when I was here before. Businesses would open up their walls to art walks. Anacortes, I came back from Anacortes and we talked about. Gee, that was great. I went to an art walk there, sort of thing with all the businesses. You go in, you have a glass of wine, cheese, and that was done. We have had that here. It wasn't put on by the town though. It was put on by the art gallery at that time, as I recall. So, yeah, Councillor Ladwig, go ahead. Yeah.
Just quickly, and then I'll stop.
Yeah,
yeah, I believe Castlegar has a cultural committee, so it is kind of run, I think, a little bit by the town.
different, yeah.
Satisfy my interest on this and to move on. I wonder if I could make a motion that if we're giving this to staff to fine tune or whatever, that they maybe look at Castlegar's model and
There's
just
many. Hope is another one. And there's many communities. Castlegar is a good. I agree. We've had that here, but Hope has mind you, their chainsaw collection and Hope sort of thing. So,
right.
That's a different theme, you know. But yeah, there are others. But yeah, they could certainly look at it. I just suggest it's a different program than having art in public spaces. It's so that, but it certainly opens up the conversation. Yeah. At this time, I'm all in favor of referring this to, did we get a mover and did we get a seconder? I'm prepared to move it, and Councillor Crowell second it, okay? Any further discussion of this policy, and it'll come back to you, and so you have time to think of it. And we could also ask them to look at the Castlegar model, and see, but it's yeah, okay. To me, it's a very different thing. I don't equate the two. That's all. That's my problem. Is I don't equate the art in public spaces as looking at, okay, you got a developer coming to town, such as at Gospel Rock, and he has a space he wants to put art, and he's going to put art, and we're not going to have any say in it, because so that it's and so the idea was that, okay, you have a committee that can give some advice on how to deal with that art. What art is relevant to the coast, as opposed to art from elsewhere. So, moved and seconded. All in favor? Yeah. Okay. Thank you. We'll refer this to staff and see what comes back. And I'm sure they've heard this discussion as well. And then we'll be talking about the proposal tomorrow night. You're welcome to be there. Council Diadrad is going to be another Zoom meeting at 7 o'clock tomorrow night, and we'll send you the coordinates. And yeah, we'll talk on it. Okay, moving on. I got to go back to my agenda to find out where we are. Council reports. An opportunity for council to report on activities. So, not seeing any big takers right now. I'll start off, and okay, now you're all there. Okay, Councillor Crowell, go ahead.
Just very quickly, the terms of reference and the invitation package went out to the high school, and the new vice principal at Elfie was back in touch with me, and I believe, I don't know whether she's spoken with Gravity at all, but candidates for the alternate position are supposed to be in by this Friday.
Good.
So they can be brought forward at the, I believe, November 2nd
November 2nd.
meeting.
Gravity, have you been aware of that?
I have seen announcements and whatnot going out and emails from the school just informing everyone, but I haven't actually personally spoken to the vice principal or principal yet.
Thank you. Yeah. Who else had their hand up? Councilor Diendrath? Yeah.
Thank you, Mary Beamish. Yeah, I just finished the Squamish Leadership Transformation Workshop. It was like 4 sessions and a full month. And it was quite, impressive. It was quite a profound experience, a deep dive into their amazing culture. And we all know the impact of residential schools, but hearing from their point of view and what they have to work with themselves, deconstructing all the image that was somehow put on them, quite wonderful. But I think even more wonderful is because they are really reframing, right? And this is part of one of their leadership, to work with the public in this evolution, right? And obviously the love that they have, the respect for the elders and for the next generations. This is something that deeply touched my heart, because we are, as a civilization, with all this environmental crisis, it's almost seems that we are not looking at the next generations, and that's a priority for them. That's the way they live. So it was incredible. I recommend anyone to take this workshop. I know Mayor Beamish is interested in taking, and they had one workshop and suddenly they already have 3 workshops lined up because it was a huge success. So it's a beautiful experience. I also attended the Ocean Watch Action Committee, and was interesting. They have, we have to do our reports, and in all the areas, I think that the town of Gibson is doing really well, but they asked specifically one area that was a new category that came up on the Ocean Watch 2020 report, which is decreased greenhouse gases emissions and more towards, and move towards zero carbon and municipalities. And unfortunately, I didn't have anything to report because we are way behind in our agenda. However, it is in our strategic planning, and I know it's in the annual report in 2019, talk about future priorities, and I hope, which is update the community greenhouse gas inventory. It is a very difficult endeavor because it's not only data that the town has, they need to network with the province, but it's an effort that we have to take, because this is in the agenda from the last strategic planning that they had. So it's almost at least 6 years or 7 or almost 8. I also participated on an eClay workshop, which was a lasting legacy, sharing the Together for Climate. This was an initiative supported by the Real Estate Foundation that is pretty much was done in Vancouver Island, supporting many municipalities to develop their climate plan. Campbell River, City of Colwood, Courtney, Esquimalt, Sanic, and Cowichan Valley. And it's very interesting because, and this is another priority in our strategic planning. And they're looking at vulnerability and risk assessment, adaptation vision, goals and objectives, community and corporate adaptation actions and considerations, and taking a whole system approach when you look at nature, the implications, the social implications, the economic implications, and the building systems implications all. So there's a lot of material I'll share with the CAO and with council, because we will be, hopefully this will be a priority that we will be setting up very soon to do for the next 2 years. And the last meeting I attended was the seniors planning table. It was a very good meeting. The MP attended, and actually he mentioned that he relies on the SPT, on the seniors planning table to move any legislation and for data. But one data that was really interesting is elder abuse increased tenfold during the pandemic. I asked if this data is in the Sunshine Coast. They said this was a data like in Canada, but they are looking for specifics in the Sunshine Coast. But this is very alarming, tenfold. It's very alarming. So, and I appreciate that we supported today the Gibson Senior Society, because any support that we gear towards seniors, obviously, it has a chance of decreasing any abuse. So that's my report.
Thank you very much. Yeah. I'll just add to that. Earlier this month, Councilor Diaz and I had a chance to walk Charmer Creek again with the Stream Keepers representative, and very interesting. It's a lovely creek. If you can follow it from mouth up to at least up to the slopes. One thing that the Stream Keepers have asked is if there are any fish returning to Charmin. So that my ask to the community is that if you see any fish, please let us know. It is that time now when the fish are starting to spawn and come up the creeks. So if you observe any at the high tide going up Charmin Creek, please let us know. We are going to put some signage on the creek areas, again asking for people to observe and report, so that if they see anything, so that we can start to determine the health of those creeks. And they're certainly, I think they're capable of supporting fish, and we'll see what happens there. I attended a Cap University Zoom meeting for a committee that I'm on there with Mayor Seegers. There's also a community action team meeting that Councillor Kroll and I attended the past 2 weeks. On Monday, Mayor Seegers and I had a conference call, just a 1 hour conference call with Mayor Morden of Maple Ridge, talking about their experience with supportive housing. And it was very interesting conversation with them, and he shared some information, and we'll be looking at that jointly as to see what we can do here on the Sunshine Coast. Reminder to everybody, get your flu shots. The flu shot is available at the Legion starting this Thursday, and I think it's 3 Thursday following. There is some information out there about it. If you don't have it, you should be able to find it. And they're going alphabetically by time when you go in there. So it's something to look at. And on Friday, Councilor Dryden and I will be participating in the House Owl Forum by Zoom as well, sort of thing. So that I will not be attending the next council meeting. Councilor Ladwig will be attending. I'll be in the midst of a move. And so that day is the day my furniture moves into a new house, and it's going to need somebody to tell somebody else where to put it. So that's what I'll be doing. So for the next meeting. So Gravity, do you have anything you want to add?
For council reports?
Council reports, yeah. Anything, any activities at the school or things happening?
Well, I have personally been in quarantine. I had to leave the country, so I haven't actually been in school for the past 2 weeks. So, but I'm going to be back on Thursday, and I'm actually very excited to talk to people and
Yes.
have a report next time.
Thank you very much. How was your experience in quarantine?
It has been actually, surprisingly, I'm okay with not seeing people all the time, but it's been good.
Good for you. Okay, moving on to council correspondence. The first item is the officially receiving copy of the UBCM Community Excellence Award, and a letter from Danita Welsh, local manager, program services. Congratulations on being chosen a winner for the Excellence in Asset Management category for your project, Town of Gibson's Eco Asset Strategy. This information will be available on our website, and It's very honored to be recognized by our peers and to receive that award. So we thank UBCM for that. And secondly is the council correspondence for the week ending October 5, 2020 and October 13. First of all, a motion to receive the correspondence. Oh, let me go back. Motion to receive the letter from UBCM. Thank you, Councillor D'Andrade, Councillor Ladwig. Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. Now a motion to receive the council correspondence October 5 and October 13. Councillor D'Andrade, Councillor Lumley. Thank you. All in favor? Okay. Anything from those two dates that council like to bring to attention? Councillor Kroll.
Thank you, Mayor Beamish. Couple of things. The week of the 13th, there's a House on Community Forum that you mentioned, and there is a link for people who want to attend that. It looks like it's really worthwhile. And in the same week, the economic study, Deep Roots, Strong Communities. It's a study that relates very well to what we're doing with the Healing Forest Project.
Thank you. Councillor D'Andrade.
It's actually more a question. I just want to make sure that I remember clearly. There's a letter about cannabis production on farmland and council. I know we don't have too much farmland, but we had already in our policy denied anything on our agricultural land. Am I correct?
I'm not sure we say denied anything.
Or I don't know how to say. Our policy has not accepted that we do any cannabis facility, or this is
No, we cannot deny cannabis on ALR. No, that's a use on ALR land. So
yes.
Yeah, it is a permitted use on ALR land, cannabis. Yeah.
Oh, it is. So we cannot do anything about it, right?
Yeah, we cannot by category deny it. No.
Deny. Okay. Yeah. Okay, because there's a letter asking for support, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay, seeing nothing further, we'll move on to bylaws. And first bylaw is the anti-noise bylaw, 1285. The recommendation that this bylaw be adopted. Copy is in your packet. Yeah. Gravity, you had a question?
I did have something I wanted to say about this before it got voted on. So
Okay.
I don't know when correct time to say that is. Just
okay, we'll go to, first of all, somebody move it. Councillor Ladwig, Councillor Kroll seconded. All in favor? No, sorry. Discussion. Gravity, now's your time. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So in the anti-noise bylaw document, power equipment is defined as, quote, any tool, equipment, or machinery powered by an internal combustion engine or electric motor that is used for construction, for lawn, garden, building, and property maintenance, etc., end quote. I think that this is an oversight because electric motors, especially for power tools, are much quieter than for motors that use gas. And I think that also there's another fact I have for you. According to EPA statistics for replacing gas power lawnmowers, using a conventional gas lawnmower for 1 hour pollutes just as much as running 40 late model cars for the same amount of time. So I think that this anti-noise bylaw is actually an opportunity to incentivize using electric power tools over gas power tools because they're both quieter and they're far better for the environment. So that's what I wanted to say.
Comments, Councillor? Councillor Kroll?
I don't think that there's an intent here to disincentivize the use of electric motors. I think where it is where an electric motor, let's say on a router or a grinder, that the motor itself doesn't generate a lot of noise, but what it is driving creates the noise, which is the infraction of the intent of the bylaw.
I guess what I was thinking about this was that with, of course, there are things that it's not necessarily the motor that is causing the noise, but it is an opportunity for things such as lawnmowers that are still loud, but when they're electric are much quieter. I think it's an opportunity to say that whether that be you can mow on this day or it doesn't, you won't be penalized if you're using an electric device. I think that it's an opportunity to consider not necessarily for everything, because some things are going to be noisy anyways, but I think that there are a lot of electric things that are far quieter when power tools that are far quieter.
Mr. Machado?
This is a suggestion, if I may, through you, Mr. Mayor, that perhaps assuming council will adopt the bylaw, we'll develop some communications, and in that, as part of suggestions for people or some form of recommendation, that we encourage people to use electric devices that are quieter. Not in every case, I agree, but certainly are. And we've heard that for our own equipment as we work in different areas, especially on weekends near residential areas. We've been considering the use of electric devices as well, and one of the reasons is the noise. But from our perspective, it might not necessarily be the best use of this bylaw for that purpose, but we can use the opportunity to communicate that that is an alternative as well that's available now, just as a suggestion.
Yeah. Could be. There are also a number of electric tools that make a lot of noise, still make a lot of noise. And I think of even hand drills and guns, nail guns and stuff like that. There are electric tools and things, so that it's something to think about. I know I have a big gas powered lawnmower, and it does make a lot of noise. People know when I'm cutting my grass. And I would have used a hand mower, except the people who developed the subdivision I live in didn't make it easy for me to do the ditches. So I have to have a lawnmower to do the ditches and get in there. So the power mower, just a hand mower, just won't do it. So next time we do redo that area. So, but thank you for that observation. Thank you. Council, be moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you. That passes. So go on to the next is the bylaw, notice enforcement bylaw, anti-noise. Recommend that bylaw number 1125 -09 2020 be adopted. Councillor Kroll, I got you, Lindsay, corporate officer. Councillor D'Andrade. Any discussion around this? All in favor? Thank you. It's 8:57. We're going to need to extend this meeting for a number of reasons. So I'm going to suggest we got the OCP, we got new business, we've got the inquiries, and we got the in-camera meeting. Council, how late do you want to stay up tonight? Yeah.
Can we extend up to 9:30, and if we need, we do a quick 10 minutes of
And motion to extend till 9:30, Councillor D'Andrade, seconded, Councillor Lumley, all in favor? Thank you. Okay, let's just keep on going. OCP amendment bylaw number 985-25 and zoning amendment bylaw number 106554 Popular Lane and Davis Road. A recommendation that the report of the Director of Planning be received, first of all. Okay. Director of Planning, would you like to say anything about this?
Sure, thank you, Mayor. So this is just a quick report clarifying some information. So the OCP change is from medium density residential to multi-unit residential special character. And at the public hearing, the medium density residential was described as authorizing zoning for apartments greater than 3 stories. And in fact, what I should have said in the presentation is that it authorizes zoning for townhouses, stacked townhouses, and 2 to 4 story apartments. So that's in fact what the designation is. So what this report does is it's intended to provide clarity on what the existing designation is. And that's it. So the staff recommendation is to proceed to adoption. And the alternative is council could schedule a second public hearing to make that, to clarify that section again.
Clarifying the section is just the section as it is today, as opposed to
Yeah.
maybe two.
Yeah, it's the existing land use designation.
Okay, yeah, okay. Council, what you wish. You want prepared to move to adoption of bylaw? Does somebody want to make the recommendation that OCPA Community Plan Amendment Bylaw number 985/25/2020 be adopted? Councillor Ladwig, Councillor Lumley, any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? I'm going to be somewhat consistent in my life. Okay, thank you. That passes. And further, zoning amendment bylaw number 1065/54/2020 be adopted. So we move that. Councillor Lumley, Councillor Kroll, all in favor? And opposed? Okay, thank you. So that those pass, and those are now adopted bylaws. Councillor Diendrad?
No, I was going to say, one thing that I felt in this public hearing that the public did not understand. So if there's any way of clarifying with the public, and I know this is a great effort.
That helps. Yeah.
But perhaps, I don't know, in the website or anything, and also that this could be, if we come across another sort of amendment that this way, that there is an effort to clarify at the beginning, because I truly felt that the public didn't understand.
Thank you. Okay, there's no unfinished business. We'll move to new business, and Councillor Diendrad, wildlife attraction bylaw. Would you like to speak to, well, yeah. Would you like to speak to this before the recommendation?
Yes, last council meeting, the Bear Alliance Society, Sunshine Coast Bear Alliance Society, made a request, and we were supposed to discuss at the meeting at the end, but we didn't have the time. So I asked if I could make this recommendation, and that's what it is, that staff bring back a report on the request presented by the Sunshine Coast Bear Alliance for the town of Gibsons to adopt a separate wildlife attraction bylaw with accompanying fine schedule for council consideration. And they have been asking, it's clear that they would like a separate wildlife attraction bylaw. And I understand that staff will give their input, but I also ask staff to fully understand the reasons why they're asking a separate bylaw. And they provide all the reasons on their report, so I don't need to say, but that's my motion right now.
Seconder? Councillor Lumley, thank you. Discussion, council? All in favor? Thank you. All in favor. That's passed. Yeah. Were you trying to raise something, Councillor Kroll, or are you just raising your hand?
I was just concerned with the capacity of bylaw to enforce this.
That will come back with a report.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, there's no notice of motion. We'll now turn to inquiries from the public, and this allows the inquiries on any item. So.
At this time, I'll ask anybody wishing to ask a question of council to please use the raise the hand feature at the bottom of the screen, and I'll turn on your audio and video. And I'm not seeing any, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, well, then I'm going to thank everybody for being here tonight. And appreciate those who attend these meetings and observe and participate. It's a very important part of our process, and that's why we do this. That's why we do this in public. And thank you very much. I'm going to now ask for a recommendation that the meeting be closed in accordance with section 91 ACI of the Community Charter. Personal information about an identifiable individual who holds or is being considered for a position as an officer, employee, or agent of the municipality or other position appointed by the municipality, labor relations or other employee relations, and receipt of advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communication necessary for that purpose. Somebody make that motion, please. Councillor Kroll, thank you. Councillor Ladwig, thank you. And thank you, Gravity. We'll say good night to you as well. And all the best. Take care. Thanks, everybody. We'll